Hi ladies, welcome back to my channel. I am so happy to have you back. Today we're going to talk about something that we may not even think would happen or we have during our healing process, but it's about the replacement. One, I never thought I had to go through myself, and two, it's it's definitely a really hard phase if it happens to you in the healing process, in your breakup journey. And this is when your ex jumps into a relationship right after the breakup. You are rushed with so many different emotions. You're like, oh my gosh, why so quick? Why so soon? Because I'm going to be very honest with you. Even a year after I broke up with my ex, I still had a shred of hope that we would get back together, even though I knew he wasn't right for me. And I know that is true for a lot of other women. A lot of other women that I've coached, they've also have held on to a shred of hope, even if it was 2 months, 5 months, a year after the relationship was over. We're hopeful beings. Hope is hardwired into us. And even though we can say that we've lost all hope, that's not necessarily true, because deep down inside, we always hold on, even if it's a thread of hope, like the thinnest thread, we will have it in the back, just as kind of like, okay, well, just in case it does change, just in case he does change. But realistically, when it comes to abusive relationship, a lot of times the other person doesn't change, and especially in a short amount of time. And if this has happened to you, I want to reassure you that it has nothing to do with who you are as a person. It says nothing about you as a human being. It says nothing about you as a potential partner, wife, girlfriend. It says nothing about who you are as a person, your morals, your values, or anything, or your worth, especially your worth. And them choosing to go into another relationship has nothing to do with you and has everything to do with them and their unmet needs and their trauma that they haven't healed, and whatever other issues that they still get to work on but they haven't chosen to, and they just want to mask it with the newness and the happy fireworks explosion feelings that you get in a new relationship. They're just masking that pain with that. That's something I want to really remind you of, because a lot of times when that happens, we can get stuck in the trap of thinking that, oh, it's because I'm not good enough. I wasn't good enough for them. They found a replacement. But that is not the case, and that is not true. And when this happens, you might start thinking, like, well, how could somebody so toxic, so abusive, find somebody new so quickly and be happy and seem to have a perfect relationship? Well, one, I want to say is that it's that's not going to last very long. Two, for them to have changed in such a short amount of time is emotionally and logically impossible. It would take a supernatural intervention from God for that person to do a complete 180 in 2 to 3 months, even in 5 months, to be quite honest with you. Because when somebody is toxic and abusive, the level of inner work that needs to be done for them to even just have a different perspective and realize their part in everything, and two, the amount of time and effort that it would take for them to do that work, it's not possible for it to be done in 3 months, 6 months, even a year. There's, especially when someone has brought so much toxicity into a relationship, it's usually because there's a lot of unhealed past trauma, and that takes a lot of time, a lot of energy to work through and to change. So like I said, don't buy the lie that they all of a sudden are healed, that they found their perfect person, and that that relationship is going to be better than what you guys had, because most likely it's not. And this particular situation happened to me. My ex started dating someone about, I want to say maybe like 5 months after we broke up. And I was rushed with all the same feelings, all the same thoughts. How could this be? There was so much stuff that happened in our relationship. Like, how could he have healed so quickly? Like, I haven't even scratched the surface of, or at least I didn't even know I hadn't scratched the surface of my own inner work and my own healing. How could he like advance so quickly? So something else I want to point out is that how quickly they jump into a relationship says nothing about your process of healing, your process of doing the work. It actually shows that they didn't do any work. They didn't really process what happened wrong in your relationship. Maybe they tried to do some work, I don't know, but most likely they didn't if they jumped into a new relationship within 3 to 5 or 3 to 6 months after you guys broke up. And they're professing like how perfect this relationship is, that this is the person they're going to marry and all that stuff. Like, I just want to let you know that that's a lot of show, to be quite honest. And it's not true. It's just part of their nature of being someone that, especially if they're narcissistic, they love to show off their new person. It's just they did it with you. And if you were with somebody that was narcissistic and abusive, they definitely did it with you. It may not have seemed that way, but when you look back, you can see like, oh yeah, they did kind of show me off. Like, for example, my ex, it was our second date, and it actually happened 2 days after our first date. And he already posted me on his social media. At the time, I was like, oh wow, that's so cool. He's posting me, and then he would post me more and more. And we probably were dating maybe like a month, and I just felt so enamored, falling in love for him. And I'm like, wow, he's already showing me off. He's not ashamed to show me off. But in reality, that's just part of their MO, their mode of operation. They tend to like to show off their new person, either to make their past partners jealous, or just because like they look at you as like a trophy or an accomplishment. Some of the feelings that you might encounter when you find this out is you might feel discarded, you might feel rejected, and like I said before, you might feel that all hope is lost. And I want to reassure you that you were not rejected and you were not discarded. Unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do or say to stop our exes from dating other people. Like, that's just something we have to accept. And part of accepting it is just processing the emotions that come up and reinforcing the positive affirmation that you've been saying to yourself, and reminding yourself that this has nothing to do with you. This What they're choosing to do, who they're choosing to date, has nothing to do with you. So you're looking at her and you're thinking that she's a replacement. You're wondering, like, how could this be? How could he have found somebody and they fell for each other so quickly? How could they already be professing their love to each other on social media, probably saying that they want to spend the rest of their lives together? You're either hearing this from the grapevine or you're actually seeing it. That's why going no contact, and I mean no contact. If you have to mute people's profiles, do it. If you have to remove yourself from certain friend groups, do it. Because your sanity, your mental well being, and your emotional well being is number one in your healing. Some other feelings that can come up are bitterness, resentment. You start hating on her. You start picking apart the way she looks, either by thinking because this person stole your dream, this person stole the life that you were meant to have or that you thought you wanted with this person. But the reality is that that's not true. That's the farthest from the truth. Because with time, you start to realize that one, he hasn't changed, and that this poor girl got herself into a bigger mess than she could have ever imagined. Like I said before, there is no way that a toxic, abusive person can heal in a short amount of time and be ready to start dating somebody new, especially within 3 to 6 months. There is no way, no way, no way. My situation was he started dating somebody new, and it was actually someone that we were, me and her were getting to know each other, and I found out that she was like talking to him, like messaging him. So I started pulling back, and next thing I know, a couple months later, they come out, they make their big reveal at a friend's wedding, and I was completely distraught, completely broken, because I was like, how could she do this? She knew, like, I've told her about him. I've shared with her what happened in our relationship. I cried in her arms, all this stuff. So it's like, not only was I feeling bitterness and hatred towards her, I also felt like majorly betrayed. I despise her. Honestly, I at this point I despise her. I can't stand anything and everything about her. I just, anytime I saw her out, because at the time I was still hanging out with the same circle of friends, and anytime I saw them out, I just could not stand her presence. And yeah, so it was the epitome of loathing somebody. Well, time goes on, and I start to distance myself from that group. And it was around the time that I had already given my life to Christ. And I started thinking about her. She popped in my head, and I was like, okay. And then I realized that she probably is going through what I went through. Because there's no way that he healed in such a short amount of time. Even though I would hear from different people, oh, yeah, he says he wants to marry her, they're moving in together. Even though I heard all those things, I was like, there's no way that he changed. There's no way. And I decided in that moment to pray for her. And I prayed, I said a prayer to God for her. And I immediately started crying. And it was like this overwhelming feeling, like this release. And after I was done crying, I mean, I probably cried for like, I don't know, it felt like 5 minutes. 5 minutes is a long time when you're waiting. Uh, it felt like a while, just crying for like 5 minutes straight. And after I was done, I felt like so, like this huge weight was lifted off of me, like especially off of my chest. So then I think like about maybe, I don't know if it was like a month or 2 months later, I find out from a mutual friend that sure enough, he's doing the same exact things that he did to me. He's doing it to her. Hearing that, I was like, wow, like the exact same things that he would get mad at me for, the exact same things that he would do to me, he was doing to her. And I was like, I knew it. I knew that he didn't change. And diving deeper into learning about uh, like toxic abusers and psychopaths and narcissists, there's no way for them to do a complete 180 in such a short amount of time, because there's years and years and years of trauma of them just piling on, like, especially if they've been through a lot of relationships, they're not the kind to like learn from the relationships in terms of doing inner work and realizing where they went wrong. They just end up blaming their past partners. I'm sure you've probably heard multiple red flags. Like if you go on a date with someone and they're saying that all their exes are crazy, most likely they're the problem. And they'll jump from relationship to relationship without doing any inner work, without doing any healing that's necessary for them to do before they jump into a new relationship, before they're ready to date. They just think that their ex was the problem and not them. So they literally bring like so much baggage from each relationship on top of the baggage that they probably experienced when they were younger. That's why I want to remind you that like there's no way that somebody that who was toxic and abusive and narcissistic, for them to do a complete 180 without the divine supernatural intervention of God Almighty, because he's the only one that can change somebody that quickly. It's very rare, but like I said, you will see by their fruits whether or not that's what happened. It honestly made me realize that, yes, does she know? I mean, the situation might be a little bit different, because I did ask God. I was like, God, like, why did it have to be her? Why couldn't it have been like a random girl off the street? I would have, it would have been easier for me to accept it, and maybe it would have, to be quite honest. But having it be somebody that, one, I knew, another, someone that I confided in, and someone that I thought I was building a friendship with in the beginning, And that was honestly the beginning of me forgiving people, especially people that have done things where it honestly, a lot of people would consider that unforgivable. That, she broke girl code. You just don't do stuff like that. But I forgave her. I let it go, and honestly, it was the best thing ever. But my point is that regardless of who it was, and I know if it's someone it's tougher, it is harder. I am going to admit that it is harder to accept it. But we understanding what we went through, that person is going through it right now. And just like how we don't ever deserve to be treated that way, that person doesn't deserve to be treated that way either. And if we can look at this woman in a different light and offer grace and offer understanding and compassion, because they're probably going through it, let's be real. They're probably having a really hard time battling through life. I mean, think about it. When you were with that person, I like go through some of my old journal entries when I was with them, and I was like, wow, I I was in a very dark place. Very, very dark. I had no self-worth. I was confused. I was lonely. I was sad. I was depressed. My emotions were kind of like a roller coaster. Like, one minute I was like, I'm not putting up with this. I don't deserve this treatment. And then the next, literally in one day, I journaled 3 times. That's insane. And to see how my emotions varied throughout the day, that's insane. We're not meant to handle that type of emotional roller coaster. Your body is constantly in fight or flight, and you're constantly walking on eggshells. It just take a moment to realize where you came from, and that this new person, this new woman in his life that's in a relationship with him is probably going through the same thing, if not worse. Because think about it, they never worked through or did any healing after the breakup with you. So most likely that baggage from your relationship, they're bringing it into that relationship on top of everything else. So I ask you as women, because we should have compassion for each other. And this person in particular, in my situation, the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because a lot of people would easily say, like, oh, she backstabbed you. You told her everything about your relationship with him and how you were hurt, and you cried in her arms about him and what you wanted from the relationship, and she went ahead and took that and went after him anyways. That's, a lot of people would deem that unforgivable, but I forgave her. I let it go because, like I said, I posted this on TikTok, that when we don't forgive, we are punishing ourselves. And I'm not saying that we need to forgive immediately. For me, forgiving her was pretty instant. The minute I prayed for her, it was like a rush of emotion just came flowing through me, and the way I could release it was just crying. I was just crying, crying over it. Like, it felt like forever, but it was probably like 5 minutes, like time feels like it's longer than it is. And the feeling of being relieved afterwards was so prominent. It was so strong. I know that was God. I know that was God's doing. And I would love for you all to experience that, or some form of that, because the reality is, if it's someone that you didn't know, they have no idea about you, and they are not with them to get back at you or anything like that. And it's so easy, especially in a lot of like circles of women, we tend to hate the new girlfriend, right? We'll find something that we don't like about her. And I've been guilty of that in my past as well. We'll find something that we don't like about her, and we're like, oh yeah, you're better, because we're trying to build up our sister. But in reality, God doesn't want that. God doesn't want us to do that. Like, God wants us to have compassion for the other person, especially if they're getting themselves into a toxic relationship. Now, if they knew you, and whether it could have been a friend, an acquaintance, whoever, if they knew about you and your relationship with him and they still did that, I know it's hard. Trust me, that's probably like one of the hardest situations, but it is possible for you to forgive and let go, but that's something that you get to work on. And it might take time, it might, or it might not. But just something that really helped me is to realize that she's probably going through it. And regardless of whatever anybody has done or hasn't done, nobody deserves to be abused. Nobody deserves to be disrespected. Nobody deserves to be mistreated. Nobody deserves to be put down and talked down to. And nobody deserves to be just mentally and emotionally or physically abused. And that goes for whoever your ex decides to date after you. And if they're just sharing with people their highlight reel, whether voicing it or sharing it on social media, it's just a matter of time before it gets worse. It really is. Because I know, every situation's different, but I know in my situation, when they first started dating and they came out, it was like they both were proclaiming like how they're the love of their lives, and he was saying that he's going to marry her, and that he's never felt a love like that. Well, I mean, he said the same thing to me. I mean, within like 3 months of dating him, he wanted me to move in. He was like wanting to go look at model homes when we were on a bike ride one day. Like, trust me, the same thing that he did to you, he's doing it to her. And just know that, especially if they've been together over 6 months, she's going through it. So there was a time where I contemplated reaching out to her, and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? Nope, I don't think that's a good idea. Even though I felt in my heart like, man, I feel for her, and I think this is after I found out that she was going through it with him. But I never did it, and this is why. Because one, I don't want to purposely put a trigger in my life again, because I am sure that she would end up telling me about things that they've experienced together that I also probably experienced with him. And I didn't want to reopen that wound. So what a lot of books recommend to do is to write this person a letter, but don't send it. Whatever you do, do not send the letter. You can either like throw it away, you can rip it up, but the reason why you want to write it out, if like you really want to get something out, is because writing is a form of release, and you're able to put your emotions on that piece of paper. It's almost like you're like, boop, there you go. And it's very therapeutic. That's why journaling is so great, because you're able to release your emotions onto a piece of paper. So write her a letter, but do not send it, and just write everything you feel. Everything. Don't hold back. And when you're done, you can either throw it away or you can rip it up and throw it away. But if you want to get rid of it, I mean, I would get rid of it, because like, what's the point of holding on to that, right? But yeah, you can just rip it up and get rid of it, and it's kind of like poof, like those emotions, those feelings are gone. And it's it's way better than actually reaching out to them, because one, it's not your place. It's not your place to tell her. She already knows what she got herself into by now, right? At this point. And think about it. If you, regardless if you started dating somebody new, or if even if you were already in the trenches with that person, like 6 months in, 8 months in, and their ex contacts you to warn you about their boyfriend, you're, depending on where you are in your mental and emotional health, like you're either going to take it as like, oh, she just wants him back, or two, like, oh no, she doesn't know what she's talking about, like we're great now. Or you could take her word, but most likely you're not going to take her advice. I understand that we want to warn people about this person, but like the reality is we shouldn't contact her. It's just better to leave it alone, because one, it could potentially open up another wound for you, or reopen a wound that you had just closed, and you've put in so much work, so much time, so much energy into your healing. The last thing you want to do is go back 10 steps because you contacted your ex's new girlfriend. Especially if it's like new in their relationship, like most likely she's not going to listen to you, because she is so head over heels for him, and they're, you know, they're in their love bubble, like she's not going to listen to what you have to say. I know that when they came out, a, a someone that was a close friend of mine said to her, "Didn't Etienne warn you about him?" And this was her response: "Yeah, but you know, every relationship's different, and people are different in every relationship." That was her response. And then fast forward to, I think it was a year later, um, I find out from another mutual friend that he's doing the exact same things that he did to me to her, and some things that were worse. So, yeah, it unfortunately sometimes people are blinded by the rose colored glasses that they choose to put on, and there's nothing that you can do or say about it. And so that's why it's just best to not get involved, and to not reach out to her, because yeah, it's just it's just better that way, honestly. I really hope this video helped you today. I love you all. I just want to encourage you that you are doing an amazing job. You are overcoming, you are learning things about yourself, you are becoming the woman that you were always destined to be. And God is right there with you. He loves and adores you tremendously. I hope you have the most amazing day, and I will see you next time. Bye.